Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you today and with a lovely guest of mine. And she's going to have to pronounce her name for me, Maria Shiyko.
You did it great.
Okay.
Did it right.
Yes. Call it intuition, Maria. So before we begin the show today, as always, you guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. And please, just as a reminder, if this show does bring you value, please share it wherever you're listening from, Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts. And please remember to rate it on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. Again, today I am joined here by Maria Shiyko. Maria is a spiritual business and life mentor for entrepreneurs and leaders. She is a former tenured university professor who studied behavior change. Maria is also a best-selling author, an award-winning educator, and an author of more than 50 publications. We could talk about that today as well. She appeared in Women Inspired TV, NBC, ABC, and many other media outlets that you can find on her website, by the way. Her mission to bring out the highest potential in her clients is what drives her today, and we are here to talk about just that mission to help her clients reach their highest potential, more specifically, their life purpose. Hi, Maria, and thank you.
Hi, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to finally get here with you. Just for those that don't know, Maria and I have been trying for like 2, 3 weeks now to get on a show, and every time it's been like I've had to reschedule or just time things come up. And so here we are in divine timing, and I'm really excited to talk about it because getting to know Maria, I realized that we do something very, very similar in respect to what our own life purpose is. It's just we're each doing that in a different way. She is doing this with entrepreneurs, business leaders, and I'm doing it with just kind of your everyday person. And so as a spiritual and life and business mentor, Maria, I really just want to start with kind of something that I get curious about in all of us healers and teachers and leaders. And that is how you got drawn into this path, into this life path for yourself, and what is a little bit of your story.
Sure, I'm happy to share. I was born and raised in Russia, and I came here when I was 21, so about 22, 23 years ago. So I've lived now more in the US than I've lived in Russia.
Oh, wow.
Then when I was 30, I went through a big life crisis with my ex-husband and just a lot of things that happened in that relationship. That brought me to start seeking for some answers, because at that point I started asking questions about everything. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, why do we live the way we live? Do I really need to hold a job? What's the point of life? What's the point of all of it? Because it felt a little bit meaningless. At that
Mm-hmm.
point, I graduated with a PhD. I had my doctorate. I got my dream job. I was not very happy at the job. I
Mm-hmm.
was sitting in a cubicle with my name on it, Maria Shiyko, PhD. Like there was fluorescent lights
Yeah. Oh,
and being on the
gosh.
computer for like 50, 60 hours a day. And so I was like, really? Like, is that the American dream? Is that why I have sacrificed so much and pushed so hard and studied so hard? And so it just started a whole well of questions for me in terms of what is important, what is not important, what do I want to pursue, do I want to live my life, and like anything from job to womanhood to having kids to sexuality
Mm-hmm.
to like I don't think I've not dug into one single aspect of my life, to be quite honest.
And that all came from that kind of catalytic moment with your divorce?
I mean, the divorce happened a few years later after that, but yes, I was suffering a lot. Like I just felt I was miserable in a lot of areas of my life.
Yeah,
And
wow,
so
we really do resonate with each other. I mean, that's a very similar to my story. And I think what I've found too in talking to so many people and clients as well, that seems to be a trend. It usually happens with a relationship or a marriage ending that thrusts us into this path of self-seeking and inner work.
yep.
And so I assume that's how so as what was it like being a professor?
It was, oh my God, you can
You
see the
probably
reaction.
weren't expecting that.
My body just answered.
Well, I guess that explains it.
It was in many
It
ways. There
does.
were many, many good aspects of it. I loved teaching. I loved working with the students. I think the politics of it was miserable and very unsupportive and toxic, of being in an environment that has been very toxic. And so it's, I had to make a very hard choice because I was tenured at that point and I was like basically had a life position. And I was asking myself, like, do I want to go to a different institution? Do I want to go somewhere else where things might be better? And I, after some contemplation, I basically just decided to pursue my and start my own business. And
Wow, just like that.
I think I used to have, and maybe I still have, like this, I don't know how to call this quality. A little part of it is risk taker, part of it is a dreamer, part of it is not a planner. Let's put it this way.
Are you an air sign?
I'm actually Virgo.
Wow, me too.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, lots of similarities then.
Yes. The more we talk, it's like the more synchronicities we have together.
Yep. So,
Would you
and
call yourself a little bit of a rebel?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I think I'm like, okay, well, fuck it all. I will just do my own thing. So,
Yeah,
and in the process of doing my own thing, then I was kind of learning on the fly of what I'm doing, to be quite honest.
definitely. Definitely. How did you find yourself gravitated towards business owners and entrepreneurs?
Well, I cannot say
Was that
that
an evolution?
I think it's part of the evolution. I think what I have realized by building my business is that I cannot have a business unless I'm a leader. Like you
Mm-hmm.
cannot have a business, have a successful business and make decisions and without embodying leadership. And so I'm like, holy smokes, I had no idea what I got myself into.
Yeah, seriously.
So I felt that I was never seeking leadership. If anything, I think I mean, I love stage. I love speaking. I love public speaking. I love, but for me, it's always, connection with people and being
Mm-hmm.
able to share something. I've been teaching my entire life. So I've always done some form of public speaking, but
Yeah.
I felt that over time, it just really like the game had me step up like in major ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost like being a leader in that way, it feels good to almost force yourself into a reason to grow. Like business has been, if I didn't have my business, I don't know. I mean, I might be a little depressed
Mm.
if I didn't have that because it's like you have something bigger than yourself to grow for and to be a leader for. And when you have a community of people, it's even more so. So I find that it gives me, not that I need it, but sometimes you do need it. Sometimes you don't feel like showing up every day, and having people to show up for, it's like, yeah, I need that. And it's a healthy amount of pressure. I find like anyway as a business owner. I don't know if you feel that way too, but I'm sure other entrepreneurs you talk to feel the same. But I also feel like being a business owner is one of the most spiritual processes you can embark on, because it takes you have to if you want to accomplish what you're going to accomplish. And of course, if that's part of your purpose, we'll kind of talk about that too. But you have to go to levels of yourself that you wouldn't normally in order to do what you're supposed to do. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, I know I resonate with you too. I started as a fitness and nutrition coach.
Mm.
And I quickly realized, like you did, that just giving somebody the program, the workout program, the diet program, and just saying, okay, go accomplish your goals, it doesn't really work that way. Most people, it's less about knowing what to do, and it's more about what things inside of myself are holding myself back from doing this. So,
Yes,
and I know you find the same thing, but how do you find that showing up with your clients, and how do you help them through that,
sure.
those internal blocks?
I find that growing a business and stepping into leadership, I would say 80% is inner work.
Yeah. Yeah,
80% is inner
absolutely.
work and then 20% action and taking action and all of it. I mean, the way I work with my clients is combining energetics and mindset and strategy. So actions are important and they do take action. But then I would say that most of the time when we talk, we really talk about how they feel, what they think, because what I have noticed, especially with the people that I work, they, in order to be authentic to themselves and in order to feel that they are in alignment, they need to be, think, feel, and do something that is in alignment with each other. So, like, say they cannot just do if it doesn't feel amazing,
Yes,
or,
yes.
or they cannot do if they, like, if their values is not, if their values are opposite of what they're doing. So, and I call, yes, my community, my clients, heart-centered people, heart-centered
Yes.
leaders or
Oh, yeah. We are totally tribe people right here.
so, so a lot of it is around listening to your heart. So a lot of the work that we do, we actually use intuition. I ask questions that are connected to intuition, like what do you feel? I teach them how to channel spirit. So they learn to combine masculine and feminine. So where the heart is leading, actually. So it's
Yes.
not the
Mhm.
mind that is leading, but it's the heart that is leading.
Mhm.
And then from the place of the heart, they're able to see the vision of what they want to create, and then based on that vision, they're able to take actions, they're able to align their thoughts, and as they do that, what they feel about themselves, how the emotions also get on page. So it's not a straightforward process. It's also not a straightforward process because we're complex beings, so we cannot just perfectly be aligned all the time. We take an action and then, like,
Yeah,
something
and and I find sometimes too with the out of alignment doesn't necessarily have to do with what we're doing. It just has to do with where we are at internally at that time, and maybe something in our outside of our business is reminding us of something else, and it triggers a feeling of lack, or it triggers a feeling of um you know I'm not capable, or I'm imposter syndrome, or whatever that may be. So working through what's live and what's there, instead of just, okay, where did we pick up, last week, or where did we leave off last week with our strategy, and then just kind of going that way. Do you find that helping people? Well, actually, I had a question for you when you brought this up, because I know what I mean when I say energetics, but what do you mean when you say energetics? You work with energetics.
Mhm. So for me, I I was trained as a channel. I have a degree in metaphysics as well. And so what I mean by that is that when I feel people talk or when I work with people, I actually can feel or sense what they feel. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
if they tell me, let's say they tell me I want to do this, but what I actually feel is lack, or what I feel is fear, or what I feel is scarcity, I will actually prompt them to go deeper and to be honest and authentic to what they actually feel. Because what happens with our business is that we attract what we are. And so no matter how much makeup we put on, like how much a new house we build, but if we don't change internally, we still keep attracting the same shit, quote unquote.
Yep.
So
Yep.
so it's like, some of this experiences and maybe some of the limiting beliefs, it's like tackling them and with gentleness, self-compassion, and
Mm-hmm.
absolute kindness, so that we're not judging ourselves, we're not blaming or shaming ourselves for having those, because we're unpacking like generations of stuff, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Yes.
when you say spiritual, like, for you, I mentioned earlier how I believe that being a business owner is one of the more spiritual pursuits you can go on. And I don't think we know that when we go into business. At least I didn't, and I don't think you did either. If I did, if I knew what I was getting myself into, I don't know if I would have said yes, but it has challenged me to the deepest core of my being. At the same time, though, I've always invited that. I don't know if you have.
Mm,
I've always been obsessed with, like, diving into the depths of myself and understanding things and understanding other people. And it sounds like
mm,
you too. And I want to know why do we do what we do? Why do we feel what we feel? What is this experience? So for me, that's what I kind of mean in the spiritual pursuit. And of course, there's higher levels to spirituality. For you, how do you integrate that? Or how do you feel that? How do you sense it for you? I'm just curious.
So through my metaphysics degree, I was actually trained to be a spiritual teacher. And so I remember a few years ago, I was channeling with a friend of mine, and the question I was asking her, I was saying like, do I go into being a spiritual teacher, or do I go into being a business coach or like a business mentor? And the answer that came through her towards me was, it's the same thing.
I was just gonna say both.
Like both. Like you don't have to choose one or the other. And it completely did not make sense to me. I feel sometimes it still does not fully make sense to me,
Yeah.
but I think it's the manifestation of spirituality, because I find that what happens is that I've had plenty of spiritual experiences where I was like one with God, one with the divine, and feeling amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go and apply it to life, you still have to make the choices that you make. You still have to, you know, be a human and do all of that. And I think this is where, part of the leadership and part of the challenge, and also, I mean, I'm glad that you're answering that challenge as well, and many others, is the part of this challenge is to how to bring this spiritual awareness and knowing into our life,
Yeah.
including business, because that means setting different standards, setting different practices, challenging some of the practices that do exist, breaking
Yes.
the rules,
Yes.
creating maybe new rules, and even those new rules can be broken as well. So it's a repeated
Mm-hmm.
testing, repeated readjustment and recalibration. So I find that for me, spirituality, like I think what it gives me personally is immense trust,
Yes.
just because I find that in business, I mean, it was probably earlier on in my business, I don't think I would have survived if did I not have the spiritual foundation, just simply because of the lack of income coming in and
Yeah.
lack of consistent inflow of money, and it really shifted me. Like I have integrated so much like lack, but walking through fire with it.
Yeah, yeah, and not being so quick to get out of the fire sometimes. I find that when we get uncomfortable and we feel like under pressure, we feel like we're undergoing something, we want to get out as quickly as possible because it's not fun. But, I pray for myself and I pray for others too that we would not ask so quickly to be removed until whatever work it is at the time is complete in us. I totally resonate with the trust portion because that has literally summed up my entire journey. Had I had wanted it my own way, I would be doing something I do not really enjoy. And
Mm.
I'm not ashamed to say that. If it were up to me, I would probably ruin the plan. you know, so and I think that sometimes, Maria, like people think that they have to separate business and spiritual, and it's almost like we're wearing a hat in each role of our life rather than just letting it all flow and merge together. It doesn't have to become one murky puddle of goppy mess of everything. But I think that spirituality lies in every area of our life should we choose to embrace it, integrate it,
Mm.
and follow it.
For sure. For sure. I mean, because when I was a university professor, I studied behavior change. And really starting your own business requires so much of changing your behavior and changing your habits, changing the way you think, changing what you do on a daily basis. And so for most people, I think change in general is very fear provoking. Like I studied it in the context of behavior change, like if you quit smoking or if you want to change the diet, like you mentioned that you were helping people with, exercise and nutrition and all of that. So, and it's hard for people because they don't have a concept of how to move through the process of change, because change elicits physiologically fear. Fear. Like we want
Mhm.
stability. We, even though sometimes the status quo sucks tremendously,
Yes.
but we still prefer the status quo because it's familiar.
Hmm.
And so I think spirituality has given me trust to go through the process of change, and it just keeps happening.
Yeah, the change, you mean?
the change.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I prefer for evolution and growth. Evolution not in the context of we evolved from monkeys. That's not what I'm saying. Evolution in the fact that I'm always I'm always changing and molding with the times. Like we're never the same. Day to day, we're never the same. We're always there's something changing. And it seems as though the more we resist that, the more suffering we incur on ourselves rather than just like seeing what it is and adapting to what is rather than trying to force something that's not. And I think that goes contrary to what you were saying earlier, how you were saying breaking some rules, right? And making new rules and even being willing to break the new rules. And it's like exactly that, because we've been so, especially in the Western world, right? We've been so wired that business is hustle and grind and cutthroat and drive. And well, it's been just
Yep.
highly masculine, and it's the absence of the feminine, which is what you're integrating here in helping people find purpose. For you, what do you how would you define purpose, life purpose? It's a big question. But we talked about that earlier and helping your clients find that.
So I find that, I mean, this is actually one of the sessions I offer to my clients is finding your life purpose. So I do a reading for it, a spiritual channeling for it. And what I find that the life purpose, if I were to get in my head, I would say that this is maybe an agreement that we have made before coming here. And maybe we said, okay, well, in this life, I'm going to, of course, learn all of these qualities, patience and unconditional love and creativity and joy and all of these other things. And part of the purpose is also, being true to yourself. So I
Yeah.
find that the way purpose is expressed, it can vary from person to person. But I think what I'm finding, if I paint a generic stroke across different people, I think part of the purpose right now, what I see more often is self-reparenting. So breaking out of how we have been parented, because that translates even into business. If you have been parented in a way that you have to be a good girl or a good boy, and you are um, people pleasing all the time, you are neglecting yourself all the time, you're working, you are always stressed, and you're always performing, like it's the conditioning. And so part of the purpose, this is what I'm seeing just across different people, different contexts, part of it is reparenting. I think another part of purpose is connecting and allowing the feelings of joy and pleasure and lightness in our life, because in the past I think that a lot of the purpose has been linked to the self-sacrifice, and
Yeah.
self-sacrifice, like sacrificing what you want to do,
Yeah.
sacrificing the inspiration that you have, sacrificing creativity, sacrificing your health and well-being. So this is the second thread that I see across different contexts and people. Another other thing that I see is actually being multi-passionate seems to be part of the purpose, so that you do not lock yourself into one box and
Yes.
allow for different expressions of the skills to come through, whether you get paid for them or you just do them for your personal leisure and pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this seems to be another big thread of the purpose. And another one is like sometimes we think of a purpose as like this, like Kamala Harris. If I follow my purpose, I'll be like Kamala Harris, or I'll be like Michelle Obama, or I'll be like Gabriella. What's her Gabrielle? Like I don't remember her name. Sorry. Like the big, some of the very, very popular, maybe people who are on Instagram, and they are created and they have created a lot of impact. But sometimes our purpose is to do it locally and do it in our
Yeah.
communities and do it within the framework of people that we can touch. Whether it's physical, like literal community where you live, or it's an online pocket of a community. And community seems to be another big aspect of the purpose.
Hmm.
So these are, and they can, of course, vary from person to person, simply because that's why it's important to know our intuition and trust our intuition, because when we compare ourselves to others, it's not helpful. Like we are straying away from purpose. But
Yeah.
these are the like from the different data points, this is what I see in general.
Interesting. Well, I hope I'm not like Kamala Harris. I hope most people aren't. But what I'm hearing you say is that purpose is more process oriented than it is about a specific thing, like what we're doing, or career and what we're doing. Like you're saying that the purpose really is what's coming up in the present, what needs to be addressed in the present. You talk a lot about inner parenting, and yeah, you and I think both do a lot of inner child healing, as I think that's where most of our internal limitations or blocks really come from, family of origin, and sometimes generational, sometimes past life too, that we don't even think about these types of things. And it's also, I heard you say, feeling oriented, like what states of feelings do we want to arrive at or experience? More joy, more pleasure, more passion, you said, more compassion, I would add too, and I think you said that earlier. So what I'm hearing you say is a different definition for a purpose than I think we're used to hearing, which
Mm,
is more about the process than it is about the outcome. And I got to echo that. I mean, I think that our purpose kind of unfolds as we're going through it, as we're going through life, rather than, okay, here are your coordinates, go there.
mhm,
It's more of like, I've referred this in the past, almost like a whispering wind,
mm.
where you never really know exactly which way it's coming from. Like you couldn't say it's coming from this place right here and it's going to that place right there. It's a general like direction that it blows, and then we just follow that along with that. That is so beautiful.
Yes, I think it's process oriented, and sometimes the same purpose can be expressed in two different ways.
Yeah.
Like for example, part of my purpose is to help people heal their childhood trauma, but I don't necessarily, like, it's not the main thing that I talk about, but this is something that I also do. Yes, and it's so the expression of it. But there are people for whom helping others to reparent themselves is the purpose, and that's the only thing they talk about.
Yeah.
So the expression can vary from person to person.
Yeah. Yeah, I found for myself I've always been more of a multifaceted being.
Mm,
And I like to deal with all aspects of the person. It sounds like you do too, but I just like to deal with all aspects of the person, and I like to have so many tools in my tool belt to be able to do that, because nobody is just one way.
yeah.
We're not going to reach all the levels of healing by just doing the inner child work, although I think that's a huge portion of it. There are so many aspects to it. And of course, I think whenever we give somebody or help somebody towards finding that bigger purpose, it's always an internal drive, something that I relate to that as a difference between pull and push. Like there has to be both, almost a pull towards my greater purpose and a push away from my past pain
Mm,
that has kept me from it.
mhm. Yes,
So, yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I love that, I love that. So let's talk about, so 2 things. I'm curious about the ecstatic dance.
Okay.
So Maria mentioned to me that aside from all of this, and you sound so studious and, like, what you're talking about from a metaphysical level and a human behavior level, and then you throw in ecstatic dance, and I was like, interesting. Okay, let's talk about that. So how'd you get into ecstatic dance? Because I know it's so popular right now. Maria,
Yeah.
I have to be honest with you. I can't do ecstatic dance, right? Like for me, it feels like unnatural.
I
It feels unnatural for me to just like go do a thing and then dance like that. For me, like dance has to be very in the moment. So tell me about your ecstatic dance.
I think it's really interesting to get the reflections from you, because I think in the past, when I was going through all the metaphysical experiences and all of that, I could not explain it verbally at all or couldn't say it. And because of that, I felt nobody listened to me because I would
Yeah,
just say, "Oh, I feel this."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then now if you say research shows that if you do this, then
Oh, see, that's so interesting. Yeah, and so well, yeah, and I think there's probably a place for both, right? You and I are probably big time feelers.
Yeah.
So sensations are huge, and I'm sure that's a part of what you talk about with people as far as, you know, being in tune with yourself, like aligned and feeling your intuition, because I feel like intuition comes in so many different ways as far as a sensation goes. For me, it's a lot
Hmm.
of body and just senses. Like,
Mhm.
what is that like for you?
It varies. It really varies because I used to like literally just talk to my spirit team when
Yeah.
I am next to a person, but I do it within myself silently.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would not actually say it out loud that this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would get an image, or sometimes just get like this knowing in my heart or in my belly, or
Yeah.
sometimes I would get a word, like almost a word written, or sometimes just like know a word which the what the answer is. And I used to have so much self-judgment. I mean that's probably one of the biggest things that I had
Wow,
to
really?
is the self-judgment part is, and stepping into leadership is like, okay, well, this is probably a part of the future where most people will be connected to their intuition in different ways
That's
and
right.
forms, because there are more than 100 metaphysical gifts. So for everyone, it's different. Um,
Really? 100? Over 100 metaphysical gifts? I mean,
yeah,
because we talk about spiritual gifts, but 100 metaphysical gifts. I am very curious about that. So I'm gonna go put a bookmark
yeah,
in that. So you had a high level of self-judgment when it came to your gifts.
horrible. It was horrible.
Really? Really? Did you think like you were crazy or something?
Yep. I
Wow.
thought I was crazy. I thought I would be severely ostracized. I mean, I also live in Boston. I'm not from here, so I don't necessarily have this New England
Yeah.
ancestry, but who knows, maybe in
Yeah,
the
that's
past
true.
lives, like with the Salem witch trials and all of that,
Hmm.
when witches were burned. But
Yeah, there was a whole worldly generation of that. The Crusades even too.
yeah, so it was
Yeah.
like, I thought just struggling with a lot of very low self-esteem and self-judgment. And so it was a process to, combined with the Russian upbringing.
Yeah. Even more so for you because you're like in this foreign land.
Yes. But then, the ecstatic dance, like going back to the ecstatic dance, I find it's, I mean, again, I don't believe there is one thing that is universally the thing.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like, this is the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But I find that it's just an amazing community here in Boston in terms of the ecstatic dance people. I find that those are people who are less in their heads and they're more,
Yeah.
they'll come and hug you, they'll come and say hello. They're generally non-judgmental.
Isn't it strange that we are like excited about a group of people that are willing to hug you? Like, where did we get so disconnected from each other that that's a gift?
Yes.
That's so wild.
So,
This is fascinating about the gift part. I kind of want to stay with it. So what was the moment for you, or maybe it was a series of moments that you were finally like, okay, I'm going to embrace this, because what you're saying is so common. I hear this so much that people are almost scared of their gifts or scared of their quote unquote power is what they tell me. And I don't know why, but I've never had that experience. I've always been like, it's just like, all right, let's go. Except for recently, I finally had a little bit of that fear where I was like, oh my gosh, like almost like if maybe it was ignorance before. Maybe it was like ignorance is bliss type of thing where it's like, let's just step into it and find out what could go wrong. And then you kind of get beat up by people a little bit the more you step into it. So you have to have a thick skin, I think, and a big heart for this path. I do. I really believe that. What do you think?
well, I think the judgment, for me, when my spiritual gift started opening up, I was in academia, so I was in a very brainy environment, so to speak, and I felt isolated, so I couldn't necessarily to talk to someone about it. I mean, there was one person, maybe one friend of mine who I shared, but then I was naive in the same way that you were describing, and I was feeling, I think I was started offering channeling session for my department people. And I think after a while
Yeah.
they decided that I'm a completely fucking cuckoo. But you know, in the past, especially for me, the way it started happening is that it's I mean, now I know, like I train people how to channel, so I remind them that you can set boundaries. Like with spirit, you can set boundaries the
Yes.
same way that
Yeah.
you set boundaries with humans. And it's like you don't have to walk around and be open all the time energetically.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when it first happened, I remember I would be in a department meeting and I would like look at a person, see their past lifetimes, see how long they did not have sex for, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like see where the whole,
Just
like all the blockages and energetics blocks. And I'm like, we're talking about student admissions. And I'm like, it's time for you to have sex. It's been 15 years.
that is
You
awesome.
would be so much happier. You
It
would
is
be.
so funny. It's so funny because I resonate with that so much. In the beginning, I was like, as you know, my spiritual gifts were coming through, just tapping into it. I was like, free energy sessions for anyone who wants it. You know, come to my house. I had people come into my house for free energy sessions, and soon I realized, okay, I don't want to do that because I'm just opening up a lot of stuff in my home, and I don't really want that. And I had people with like entities that I was removing there, and I'm just like, yeah, let's go. This is easy. It's natural, right? And you just kind of like run with it, I think, without having any plan yet. You're just like, it's unfolding. Awesome. And let's go.
Yeah, it's probably like the, you know, childhood stage of
Totally. Infancy.
teenage or teenage stage of it's fun. And it's also like,
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and then I find like we go through our teenage stage, which is a lot of challenge, right? It's like now we're not so ignorant or naive like you said. We're actually aware, and we've actually been burned by, at least for me, burned by some people through the process just by being you, just by being your spiritual self. You kind of get some backlash, then you get some hurt that goes along with it, and then you have to overcome that hurt and you have to pursue and persist in any way. I find maybe we can call that the teenage stage
mm,
until we reach the adult stage where none of that bothers you and you just are your own powerful self all the time.
yeah, I mean, that's the leadership part, right? That's the wanting others to accept you, but accepting yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword. Okay, really quickly, I want to just touch on this. 100, you said? 100
More than 100.
metaphysical, more
Yep.
than 100 metaphysical gifts.
Yep.
Tell me about that because I've never heard this before.
So this is I heard from one of the people from my metaphysical schools. Like I think she channeled about that, so I know that she has a list, and I'm gonna just try to remember some of this of what I remember her sharing. Like for example, you know, like the clairvoyancy and the
Hmm.
clairaudiency, claircognizance. So like the parallels of the human senses.
Yeah,
Each one of then intuitive writing is one of them as well. So then being able to transpose yourself in like two different places at the same time, being in two places at the same time, astral projection, astral travel. So some people can have several of those. So it's not just limited to one per
yeah, for
person,
sure. Yeah.
but it can be multiple, past life regression, um, being able to, oh, levitation is one of them actually.
Mm.
Levitation, and some of people, they, I mean, I don't know if there are still people who are able to do like physical levitation, but you can levitate and spiritually, like you can
Yes.
lift your energy
Yeah.
field,
Yep.
levitation, psychic surgery, being able to predict the future or like seeing to the future, then seeing to the past, like what even the seeing.
Wow.
So seeing has, like there are different ways of seeing, but
Seen,
then
yeah.
even the seeing divides into several gifts. Some people can see into the future better, much better. That's their unique gift. And then some people are able to see into the past, which is their unique gift. And some people are able to see into the blocks, the energetic. Like for me, I can often see into the blocks. Like
Yep.
I can see what people hold. So for me, it's very much connected to the inner work, the type of seeing or feeling that I have.
Yep.
And I'm forgetting, like there's so many, but I remember I was reading that list and I'm like, holy smokes.
Well, I'm just like, I'm listening to you and I'm like, I feel like I have every single one that you just listed so
Mm,
far.
it's possible.
And just happens at different times based on what's needed. Yeah, that is, I would love to see that list. Because it gets more specific than just the spiritual gifts, right? And I
Yes.
think there's a lot that people don't know as far as
If I find
this.
it, I'll send it your ways.
Yes, and then if you get it to me before the show comes out, guys, for you listening, I will put it in the show notes so that you guys can
Okay.
take a peek at that if you guys are interested.
Sounds good.
Um, yeah, okay, that's amazing. I love this. So you guys, so just so that people can find you, Maria, I've loved this conversation. I feel like we could just ping pong off of so many of these ideas and barely even got to half the stuff that I wanted to talk to you about. But what I really love that you're doing is very similarly to me is that you're not doing you don't work out of a place of ego. You're helping people find those tools to access within themselves to be heart centered leaders in business specifically. But I think we're all in business in some way, right? We're all leaders in some way, in some area of our life. And for us all to be more heart centered like this, I believe this is truly the work. I believe that this is truly our purpose here on earth to be heart centered, serving with a purpose for the greater good and aligning ourselves with our specific, I call it our musical note in the universe, the one song of humanity. And so I just love what you're doing. I love what you're doing. And for those that are curious and also love what you're doing, where can they find you? And then I have a pop quiz for you.
Okay. So I'm excited about that. So my website is my website is mariashiyko.love, and it's MariyaShiyko. So
Yeah.
there's IY in my first and my last name. Dot love OVE. And also the same name on Instagram, Maria Shiyko at Maria Shiyko. So I'm on Instagram. Send me a message. I'm always happy to have a free consultation, see if we're a good match if you're interested.
hmm Yeah, and I'll put all those links in the show notes for you guys to find her very, very easily, her social media and her website. So here's my pop quiz for you, Maria. You ready? In case you probably already know this, but maybe not. Okay, so what are my energetic blocks at this point in my life?
Wow. All right. Do you want us to answer? No, I can answer.
Yeah, 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 I'm totally open for it. Yeah, I probably already know it. Probably already know it, but maybe it'll
Yeah.
be nice to hear. I think out loud.
So the second you asked me that question, and by the way, it's very brave and courageous of you to do it on
I
air.
know, I know.
So right away, my attention was drawn to your pubic bone and your base chakra between the first and the second. I think it's connected to like self-worth and self-confidence, and just really embracing your gifts fully and not holding back from owning your gifts and sharing your gifts with the world, which I think you're already doing, but it's like it just feels that you can dial it up. You can dial it up 10 times. That's what
Yeah,
it feels like.
anymore.
I mean, you have a lot of self compassion already. I think that maybe in the times when you struggle, I mean, you do go to self compassion when you struggle, but if it can be more of a habit of just going into even more self compassion, like whenever something hard comes up, it's just going into big, big, big self compassion because none of it is your fault. Because sometimes you think thoughts like, oh, maybe I've done something, maybe it's my fault, and so the message is it's none of this your fault. It's things you are unraveling, undoing. But sometimes it might feel like, like I've worked on this for so long and why is it still coming up? So I think the message for you is to also dial your self compassion 10 times as well.
Spot on. That feels very. It feels resonant.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. That is very
You're
true.
very brave, by the way. You're
Yeah.
very, very brave to do this on air.
Well, I find so when I first started my show, Maria, I promised for transparency and vulnerability and that I would go first. And I think for me, growth and healing and like really just stepping into and fulfilling my assignment here is the most important thing for me. So that really trumps anything else, feelings like how can I this for me that's not embarrassing for to hear you say and to know that other people are hearing you say, yeah, I'm dealing with a little bit of self-confidence issues right now, some self-worth issues, and I'm not really bringing out my powerful, like you said, you can dial it up like 10 times. And for people that know me or have seen me, they're like probably a little scared by that to feel like, okay, she's been doing this and there's 10 times more. And I'm like, I know that that's true when you say that. I'm like, I know. And to be able to just bring that out and
Mm,
the inner critic. And so it's all very, very real for me. And I would rather know and have a pathway to working towards that than having something hidden and being almost embarrassed that like other people see it and I'm not
mm,
able to see myself. That's a fear for me, for other people to see, yeah, I see your flaws, I see what is holding you back, but for nobody to tell me that, that's like I would hate that. I would hate that.
mm, mm.
So I embrace criticism. I embrace, and it's not even criticism. I embrace the areas where I can step more into that. And it, I think no, there's no other way. Thanks
Yeah,
for playing with me on the spot there.
sure. Sure. I mean, I think that simply because you dial up the intensity by 10, I don't think it means overpowering others. I think it might just mean that it will take you less time to do what you're doing.
Mm,
It does like it might simply mean that, when your power is dialed up 10 times, like it's yeah, it's like you counter,
yeah.
if you work with people one on one, what you
Wow.
needed 60 minutes for, maybe you need half an hour for, or 20
Wow.
minutes.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. You just kind of cut through all the static.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm blown away. Thank you for that. And hopefully that inspired some of my listeners to reach out to you or just to start being curious about their own inner selves.
Hmm.
And you guys, yeah, like I said, she's spot on. I resonate so much with what she just said. So if you're curious for yourself, go reach out to Mariya. Go find her on social media. Go to her website. I will post all of it again, like I said, in the show notes. And is there anything else you have for me
Let's see.
or that you want to bring up?
Like in terms of the channeling,
Oh, anything, anything that you want to share or channeling or whatever, anything your intuition draws you to.
I'm like, to which
I'm like
channel
free
do I
session.
need? Do I need to which channel do I need to tune into your
Tune into.
audience? Do I tune into your channel, to the audience's channel? I think I think it's a reminder that
There we go. I just had to refocus the camera.
yeah, I think it's just a reminder for all of us and maybe the listeners to embrace the level of courage that you do have, because I think many people, they are scared of the inner work. But
Yeah.
what I'm learning more and more is that there is like our mind sometimes tells all kinds of stories about the inner work, but when you are actually doing it, yes, it's painful, can be painful sometimes, but it's so worth it for change in the life. It is so, so worth it. So I think just the way you vulnerably demonstrated this, I'm like, yes, I mean, this is the level of courage that anyone can have and everyone should have so that they can change their lives, because the suffering that we experience by not doing it much, much more outweighs the pain that we feel when we do the inner work. So I
Yeah.
find that it's like suffering versus pain. Yes, sometimes it can be a painful process, but the results are actually
Are.
incrementally better and better and better
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They far exceed and far outweigh the suffering that you would experience staying stuck or staying
Yeah.
held back. Yeah, and I think also I would add to that the world suffers greatly when we don't as well,
Yeah.
because the world, in order to have a harmonious humanity, relies on us doing this inner work and becoming aligned with our true assignment, our true selves, and our true calling. So
Hmm.
thank you for helping the world in that way, Maria. I really, really cherish you and the work that you do. Again, you guys, if you are curious, if you liked what you heard today and what you felt today, please go to Maria's website. Please go to her social media. You know me, it's my mission to help the world in this way as well. And so wherever you resonate best in order to do this, you need to go there. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this is a reminder, if this brought you value, if you want to send it to somebody, please share it wherever you're listening from. Please rate the show on Spotify, and please subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. And it's been a pleasure with you, Maria. Until next time, guys, we'll talk to you very, very soon.